Morning, Rob. Good to see you.
Maria Lawrenson.
Hello.
That's very succinct. Hello. How are you?
I'm good.
Wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
She could have said just hi.
Yeah.
She's done that before.
More formal hello. Yeah. Our guest in this segment is Salaam Bhatti. He is the SNAP director for the Food Research and Action Center. They are very concerned about the One Big Beautiful Bill and its effect on West Virginia through SNAP and other programs as well. Let's welcome him in by saying good morning, Salaam. How are you?
Good morning, Rob, Bill, and Maria. I'm doing well. How are y'all doing?
Great, thank you. Yeah, wonderful to have you on the program here. As you see it, Salaam, what are the problems with the One Big Beautiful Bill as they will affect SNAP and the state of West Virginia?
Oh, gosh, I hope we have like 3 hours to talk about this. It's just like the song was, this is the highway to the danger zone.
Indeed.
The Big Beautiful Bill is set to cut $300 billion from the SNAP program. That's upwards of a 30% cut of the entire program. And the way that impacts every single state is it's awful. So let's talk about West Virginia. One of the things that is in this bill, in both the House and the Senate version, is something known as a cost shift. So right now, SNAP gets funded in a two-way pattern. One is that the SNAP benefits that people receive to use in the grocery stores, and it's average like $6 per person per day. It's nothing extravagant. That is fully federally funded. That is all coming from Congress. What the proposal is to shift some of those costs to the state. Now there's this chatter that's happening like, we're going to start with just like a 5% modest shift. But if you're not familiar with state politics or state budgets, you might think 5% is nothing. But we have to understand that state budgets are tied up with so many other funding needs, underfunded in so many other ways. So there really isn't any money in a state budget to do any type of cost shift to help with SNAP. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing that there's this, I said, at least 5% of a cost shift. It could go as high as 25% for a cost shift. And in West Virginia, that could very well likely happen. This is because they are basing this cost shift on the state's payment error rate. Now, a payment error rate happens because the SNAP program is super complex. It's unnecessarily complex, and that's thanks to Congress. We're always trying to streamline the program, take away some of these burdens that people have to go through, but Congress keeps trying to make it harder. It's the Gordian knot of our time. So what we would see is if this cost shift happens, then West Virginia had a payment error rate, and I want to make it clear that payment errors are not fraud. It's just because the program is so complex and there's nothing malicious about it. West Virginia had a payment error rate in 2023, which is the most recent data we have, of 10.98%. Now you might think, 10.98%, take that away from 100%, and it's still like a B+, which is great. And you can bring that report card home to your parents, and hey, you might get a cupcake or something. But to the House and to the Senate, this is way too high, and West Virginia would be faced with the maximum cost shift. So for the House, that would mean a 25% cost shift if that was the percentage that goes forward. And for the Senate, it would be a 15% cost shift, which is their maximum in their bill. And either way, it's unaffordable. So how do we know it's unaffordable? Well, in 2024, West Virginians received about $565 million in SNAP benefits. So if this type of cost shift existed in the past, the House version of that cost shift of that 25% max would mean West Virginia has to fund $141 million from their state budget just for 1 year. And if the Senate version goes through at 15%, then it's upwards of like $84.75 million, again, just for 1 year. And West Virginia does not have that money. So we also see in the other way that SNAP is funded with administration. The state has to administer the program, right? So that is a 50-50 split between the federal government and the state government. And it costs about $18 million for both the state and the federal each, last we have data for. So that means it's an extra $9 million that the state would have to put in, because the split would be 75 for the state, 25 for the federal government. Again, money that West Virginia doesn't have. So what does that mean? If you can't fund something, then that means you gotta, reduce, expand any expansions that have happened. So any new people that received SNAP beyond the defaults are going to be rolled back in case the state is going to try to make things work. But ultimately, what we could very well see is states just pulling out of the program and withdrawing from it entirely because they can't afford it. So that would put so many West Virginians at risk of increased food insecurity.
How many West Virginians benefit from SNAP, according to your stats and research?
So, yeah, the most recent we have is about 278,000 folks in West Virginia. Now, this is those who are directly benefiting, and it should be enough that SNAP is helping people put food on the table. But as you know, when you do something good, there's a great ripple effect that happens. And so what we know is that for every dollar put into the SNAP program, there's a $1.80 economic impact during downturns. And that just makes sense, because when somebody's spending money in the grocery store, it helps them keep their staff and it helps them keep their lights on. But it's also helping the truck driver who's driving the food over. It's paying the payment processor who's processing the SNAP payments. And it's helping pay the farmer who's growing the food. So there is a massive economic impact that is phenomenal. And it is great because on average, SNAP benefits are spent within 3 weeks of receipt. So it's a quick injection into the local economy. It's money that keeps the economy moving and stimulated. And it's not money that people are hoarding in offshore accounts, which is what these tax cuts, that these overall cuts would be funding.
Maria.
So clearly, we believe that our congressional representation is aware of this. And so how have you worked with them, and what is the response? I think in particular, Senator Capito, who I believe has gone on the record, has talked about some of the issues that would result with these kinds of cuts.
Yeah, so the Senate is in our targets right now. They're looking at their budget cuts. The House, of course, passed their bill. The Senate is considering their bill over the next week or so. I think they should be voting on it next week, or at least before the July 4th break. We are putting the pressure on the Senate that there is no reason to vote yes to this bill. There is no reason to have any of these cuts. There is nothing there's no savings that is happening, because as we know, all of the money that is being cut from these programs is going to pay for tax cuts to go to the wealthiest corporations and people. So that we don't need that. Nobody needs that. So we're letting the senators know there's no need to vote yes on this. These programs are working. If anything, we have great ideas, there's legislation in play right now that will help improve the program, because that's what we all want, to improve the program. But making these cuts will not improve the program. What they will do is remove people from the program. There is a new time limit that's being proposed in these bills. Time limits are also known by the pejorative of work requirements. And with these work requirements, especially the ones that are going to target those who are between the ages of 54 and 64, estimates are coming in that upwards of 3 million older adults in this age range would be removed from the program, not because they found jobs, but because they couldn't find jobs. There's a 3-month time limit that they have to find a job. And as we know, there's age discrimination. They may have health issues that don't rise up to a full disability to exempt them from those work requirements or time limits. And so many other reasons that Congress is just not considering, and they're just looking to remove people from the program.
So has your organization in particular met with Senators Capito and Justice? Are you trying to do one-on-one meetings? How you say you're working with the Senate. What does that look like? Are you trying to set up individual meetings?
So what we're doing is we're working with our state partners to be in the room with the senator. As a national organization, senators typically don't want to meet with a national organization. They want to meet with constituent organizations. So with our network partners in West Virginia and throughout the whole state, throughout the whole country, that's exactly what we've been doing, is coordinating that and making sure the senators know exactly what is happening in these cuts so that they can't feign ignorance later.
Bill?
Yeah, good morning, Salaam. We tend to forget about the purpose of an organization such as SNAP. We know what SNAP means, but over time we've forgotten exactly who the audience for SNAP. Refresh us, if you will, and you did this in part with the elderly. What are the criteria to get SNAP benefits? Is there a means tested? Is there age test? What are the criteria?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a means tested program, and it's based on the federal poverty level. So let's say the federal poverty level for a family of 3, it's $26,650 for the year. It's not a lot. That's of course that's the 100% of federal poverty level. Now, what happens is there are different types of tests to get into the program that people have to, a lot of hoops people have to go through. So when you're thinking about who out there is getting SNAP, it's people with very little income. I mean, there's a report that came out recently that a single adult can barely make it with a salary of $70,000, and they are nowhere near eligible for the SNAP program. So for a household of 3 making below $26,000, then they're going through a lot of hard times. So this SNAP program is incredibly helpful for them, but also the benefits themselves are not adequate. Like I mentioned, it's about $6 per person per day. So they're not really able to get the most nutritious foods or the healthiest food options. There's this other conversation that's happening that SNAP participants need to buy healthier foods. And everybody wants to buy healthier foods. It's just that if you don't have the money for it, how are you going to do it? You can't go into debt. You shouldn't be using a credit card to buy food. So that's another issue that we're grappling with, was how can we make the benefits more adequate? What we also see in West Virginia is we have over 10,000 veterans who are participating in SNAP. 38% of the SNAP households have an older adult. 43% of the SNAP households in West Virginia have children. And 54% of the SNAP households have people with a disability. Sometimes people are also saying, well, if they worked, they wouldn't need it. But between 2019 and 2023, we saw an average of 69% of SNAP households included somebody who was working. So what we're also seeing is a conflation of how wages are not adequate to keep up with the economy. And there's just so much more root causes that we should be addressing that could ultimately help people no longer need the program.
Is SNAP part of Medicaid, or they just serve a common audience?
Serves a common audience.
Okay.
And different programs run by different agencies and the federal government. You've got the United States Department of Agriculture that runs SNAP, and I am so out of my lane when I'm talking about Medicaid. I couldn't even tell you what agency runs it. I think it's CMS that runs Medicaid. But the cuts that are coming down the pike, are rather being proposed by both the House and the Senate, it's upwards of over $1 trillion in cuts to SNAP, Medicaid, and Medicare. So this is if these cuts go through in any way, then it's going to have devastating impacts on people who rely on multiple programs, if not even just a single program. But also the ripple effect is going to be profound as well. We talked about how SNAP dollars have economic impacts, but there's also over 2,000 retailers in West Virginia that are using SNAP or benefiting from SNAP purchases. So that they redeemed a total, West Virginia businesses redeemed a total like $730 million in 2023 just in SNAP purchases. So if you cut that, and if you cut 5%, 30%, 15% of that, it's going to be felt by convenience stores, by grocery stores, because they're operating on thin margins already. So what does that mean? If a grocery store was receiving a good share of its revenue from SNAP, and now all of a sudden that has been reduced or removed entirely, then you'll see they have to figure out a way to make ends meet, and they will increase their prices to cover those costs. And then the people who are not eligible for SNAP, who cannot afford those increased prices, now they're going to feel the belt get tightened. And when the store can't sell that product at that price anymore, or multiple products, or their entire all their shelves, then they'll have to close down. So then food insecurity will increase for entire communities and not just those who lost their SNAP benefits. So the domino effect here is very critical.
We've been hearing these sorts of arguments for quite a bit the last 3 or 4 weeks, and there is a sense of urgency to be sure. But I'm not certain these legislators, Congress, are hearing this or resonating with it. If this big beautiful bill does pass with these cuts that are quite possible, do you have a fallback position other than the sky's falling, the sky's falling?
No, this is, SNAP is the nation's #1 line of defense against hunger. There's nothing that can make up for the hole that would be left if SNAP is taken away. Food pantries, churches, they cannot make up that gap. We've seen studies that show that for every meal that a food pantry can provide, SNAP provides 9. So it's an effective program. It's efficient in the way it works, and we just need to make sure that so many different stakeholders are going before their Congress members and letting them know. For example, we're not seeing a lot of advocacy coming from industry. There's a lot of big box retailers that are not being public about this, and perhaps is due to fear of retaliation from the administration. But really, when it comes to anti-hunger organizations, while we can appeal with facts and data and stories and bringing people with lived experience and expertise to the table, that's unfortunately not been changing people's minds and hearts to vote against the bill. We really need all hands on deck, from health insurance companies, medical practitioners, grocery stores, big box and small. We've seen some great things coming from the National Grocers Association, from FMI. They're stepping in as well. But we really need everybody who would be impacted by this, which is everybody, to be talking and raising a clamor about it.
So, Salaam, just real quick, tell us what foods are eligible. In other words, what can people buy through SNAP? Are there any? I know that there are some things that you can't buy, but tell us what's generally okay to buy through this.
Yeah, you can buy anything. You cannot buy alcohol. You cannot buy hot foods. You can't buy prepared foods. So those are the limitations of the SNAP program. But anything else is good to go.
In regards to these cuts, Salaam, are we looking at, first let me back up by saying, what would the average household benefit of SNAP be from a dollar amount?
Yeah, in West Virginia, the average per person per day is about $5.58.
So over the course of a month, that's about $175, $180.
Yep, about 170. Yep.
Okay. So if this bill goes through, does that benefit get zeroed? Does it get halved? If the states take no action?
If the state doesn't withdraw from the program, then the benefit itself won't be changed. There's nothing in the bill that proposes changing the benefit amount outside of doing something that's called the Thrifty Food Plan. The Thrifty Food Plan is the way the SNAP benefit formula is figured out. Like how does the government know how much somebody's getting? Well, it's based on the Thrifty Food Plan. So what the bill proposes to do is to freeze the Thrifty Food Plan formula. So what that would do moving forward is reduce the purchasing power of the SNAP benefit over the next decade. So that would be a future reduction, a future cut. The average wouldn't drop, but what we would see is people cut from the program, and so we'd see a lot fewer people receiving SNAP.
You mentioned 10,000 veterans participate in West Virginia, participating in SNAP. Have the veteran organizations engaged in this issue?
There are a lot of organizations participating in the issue that are being targeted by this. Have I seen veterans? I haven't. In fact, I was just asking myself this question yesterday, so I'm going to follow up on our veterans friends.
Got a minute left, Salaam. The final minute is yours. What else would you like to say?
Oh, goodness gracious. I want people to know that SNAP is something that helps everybody in ways you may not even know, even if you're not participating in the program. You know, we are really all in this together. These cuts that are coming down the pike that are being proposed need to be advocated against, and your voice matters. So I encourage you to go to frac.org, FRAC.org, /action. And on there, you'll see social media graphics, social media messaging, so you can get that message out to your friends and your family members. And also, there's an opportunity to send an email to your senator with template language, and we encourage you to customize, personalize that language with your own story or as to why you really believe these programs, SNAP especially, need to be protected. And so with our powers combined, we can truly help save this program.
Salaam, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Rob, Bill, and Maria.
Thanks,
Thank
Salaam.
you.
Salaam Bhatti from the Food Research Action Committee. It is time for our final break.